Rabbi Akiva was walking down the road, and he missed his exit on his way home. And he came upon a Roman citadel, and at the top of the citadel was a centurion, looked down and saw the rabbi coming, and he screamed out, "Who are you, and what are you doing here?" The rabbi was startled because he was studying a really interesting piece of scripture. And he said, "What?" And the centurion said again, "Who are you, and what are you doing here?" And the rabbi cocked his head, and he said, "How much are they paying you?" And the centurion said, 2 drachma a day. The rabbi smiled, and he said, "I'll pay you double if you wake me up with that question every morning." Who are you, and what are you doing here? Yeah, if you forget the question, the story doesn't work. But I think, I was sitting here thinking, I love that Evan can kind of condense his aha moment into 10 seconds. And he's like, and then I had an aha moment, and my life totally changed, and here's who I am. And as I was going through my life story this week, I was like, I guess I'm a person who needs like an aha moment every few years to kick him in the ass, for lack of a better term, to change the trajectory. And that's kind of what I realized. That's what I want to share. Several aha moments throughout my life, from when I first started trying to be a creative person, an artist, a storyteller. And hopefully there's some lessons that you can learn from that, some inspiration you can draw from that, some what not to do's, and maybe some what to do's as well. But as was said, in present day, I am a theater and film actor, director, producer. I've kind of been doing this mix of things to build a creative life over the past decade or so. It's been very hodgepodge, but certainly New City Players, 10th season right now. That has been, yeah, we can clap for that. That's kind of been the foundation and my creative baby for these several years, coming into my profession and into my career and really into adulthood. I started it when I was 25 years old with a group of friends. So it's been quite a journey and always the thing that has been there, but I've done a lot of other things outside of that. I think where this really started for me is, I grew up in a mega church, right? Any church kids in here? Any oh, look at that. Oh, we got a church kid in the back. And you became an actor. See? We have a lot to express. Yeah, I get it. So I grew up at a big church. I went to school at that church. I worked in the restaurant at that church. Yes, there was a restaurant at the church. So my life, 7 days a week, was kind of consumed with being on this church campus. And it gave me a lot of things that I don't appreciate, but it gave me a lot of things that I have come to appreciate as well. And I think one of those things is this idea of building relationships and building community. And I think church at its best is a space where people come to connect and connect as human beings. And if there's something divine involved in that, that's wonderful and beautiful. But that's something that was instilled in me, this idea of having a community and creating a community is so valuable and so necessary to us as human beings. And so when I was in 8th grade, there was a Christmas show that my school was doing. And I had a lot of stage fright. Like, I hated class presentations. Was always like sweating and could not handle getting up in front of a group of people. But I was involved in, my parents want to be very well-rounded. So I played sports. I was involved in choir and band. And they wanted me to get on stage and do something on stage as well. So my dad said, all right, listen, if you audition for this show, this Christmas show, and you sing a solo in it, I will give you $100. And, 8th grade, what are we in, 2003 or something? That's a lot of money at the time for an 8th grader. And so I auditioned for the show, and I had like 2 solo lines. It was kind of an ensemble Christmas thing, but I did have 2 solo lines, and I got the $100. And it was the last time I was paid to act for about 20 years. But it brought me into a group of people who were a lot of fun. People who were putting on a show, and the director who directed the show. And I was like, oh, this is actually really enjoyable. So I auditioned for the spring musical that year. We were doing You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. And I was cast as Charlie Brown. So kind of a leap from 2 solo lines to now you're the title character. And I'll never forget the night before opening night, I was absolutely nauseous off stage, just like miserably nauseous before we opened that show. And it was a blast though. I had a great time. I kind of found my my community, right? I found my pack of weirdos that is the theater. And I continued to do theater all through high school, but as I said, very involved in church and church life. And that often involves church camp, going to church summer camp, which if you're not familiar with a church summer camp experience, I'm trying to decide if I want to be charitable or not. If I were to be charitable, no, fuck it. If I were to be uncharitable, it is bring a bunch of children in a room and emotionally manipulate them as much as possible and get them to make decisions that they will probably not follow through on in the next year of their life. All right? So that specific church camp, it was after my sophomore year, there was this one night where the focus was really about like, we want kids who feel they are called into full-time ministry to come up here and like, but what were we doing? Like confessing that that's what we wanted to do or something? Like come to the front of the room and say that this is what you want to do with your life. And I felt such a pull to do that. And my dad was a pastor at the church, so just like church life was very integrated and very everything a part of my life. And I was involved in student council and student leadership and small groups, just like all the church things that a churchy kid can do. And I felt this overwhelming sense of responsibility to like, yeah, this is the direction that my life is going, to be in full-time ministry in some regard. So I go forward and I do that. And I remember we had like a debrief, our youth group had a debrief afterwards. And they had everyone who went up kind of get up and share what that moment was for them. And I'll never forget because I stood up in front of, we were a big church, there's probably 100 other kids and youth leaders. And it's just so sad to say out loud now. But it was, I thought that what I was supposed to do with my life was become an actor. But now I know that that's not what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to be in full-time ministry. I'm supposed to become a pastor. And that's the direction I thought I was going, right? I didn't stop doing theater because that was my community. That was the thing I loved to do. I did it all through high school. When I went to college, I went to a Christian college. My major started out as a Christian ministry major, but I did a theater minor as well. It was always like a drug, right? It's like I just need a hit every now and then, but I know I'm supposed to do this thing. And I eventually kind of evolved like, okay, Christian ministry, it's a little too churchy. And even though I went to a Christian college, I started being exposed to a lot of new ideas. I started reading a lot. I started making friends who had different ideas about religion, about philosophy. And so I moved out of ministry and I moved into biblical literature. So sort of the more academic approach to ministry. And then I started taking philosophy classes and history classes and theater classes. And I just kind of realized, part of that evolution was, I've thought that like fulfilling my life's purpose meant I had to be in ministry. It's like, no, at that time, anything you are doing, if it is what you've been gifted in or the thing that makes you come alive, it's really finding what do you have skill at, what makes you come alive, and what does the world need? And that is ministry. Whether it's church or not, that is serving other people. That is giving something to the world. And so that was like an evolution that occurred while I was in college. It was like, I don't have to do church ministry to feel like I'm fulfilling some higher divine calling, right? And so junior year, I was like, okay, well, I'm already down the path with this major, and I've been taking a bunch of other classes. It's a little late to turn back. So I'm going to finish out this Bible major, but I want to be an actor. This is what I want to do. This is the thing that lights me up, that excites me the most. And I'll never forget, I make that decision, and then I go on this trip in January of 2011 to Indonesia. And it's kind of like after I had that fall, I would have been like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, right? I'm leaning into theater. I'm leaning into becoming an actor. And then I go on this trip to Indonesia with a group of 20 other or so classmates. And it was kind of like a cultural excursion trip, kind of like a missions trip, but not really. And I was playing beach volleyball, because that's what you do on missions trips. And I hyperextended my leg really bad. It like slid in the sand, hyperextended, and excruciating amount of pain. Now, at the time, I was 320 pounds. So always been a big kid. This will be a part of my story as well. So right now I'm about 195. So add 100-something pounds to this person as a junior in college. That's who I was. And so when you all of your body weight goes like that on your knee and you hyperextend. I don't know how my knee didn't just snap, to be honest.
No Ozempic, right?
No Ozempic. Everyone's first question is how did you do it? I'll get to that maybe if people are interested. And so excruciating pain, it was massive nerve damage is ultimately what happened. They had to helicopter, we were like on an island. They had to bring a helicopter, like I took a boat to a helicopter off to the airport. I'm getting wheelchaired around. I mean, it was like an absolute nightmare. Trip was cut short. I had surgery to try to repair the nerves. I was in physical therapy for several months. I had to miss a semester of college. And I was like, I can't walk. So I had drop foot, right? So if you know what that is, it's when, if this is you holding your foot up, it's stuck here, and you literally can't. If this foot is doing this, this one is completely stuck. So walking is like this because you can't actually lift your foot. And so in my mind, I'm like, well, there goes my acting career. I can't walk. So it's like the second I had decided this is what I'm going to do with my life, it felt like it was immediately taken away from me. And so that was a very challenging period of life as a young person who thought, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do, feeling like it was taken away from me. And I kind of had to go through this process of letting it go in a strange way. And looking back, I'm like, was that healthy, all of what I went through to sort of be like, okay, fine, I guess I won't be an actor. I'll find something else to do. I'll be a director, or as long as I'm telling stories and doing what I love. But this kind of purge had to take place. My foot did get a little bit better. Now I can hold it up and lift it a little bit, but it's still, that's a lifelong injury that I live with. But I go back to school senior year, and the whole year I'm wearing this giant boot. It's like a plastic boot that goes into my shoe just to keep my foot level, right? As I'm continuing physical therapy and trying to get the nerves to repair. But that year I was in every single show. I was a lead in every single show that year. We did the Christmas musical. We did A Christmas Carol. I played Scrooge, which is ridiculous. We did a couple other plays, really great acting experiences. I actually cut my course load down and did a lot of private work with my director. And I was like, I'm going to grad school. Like, this is the thing I'm doing. I did an independent study. And I'll never forget my professor, and this is kind of what was the final switch for me, right? My professor, when we were doing A Christmas Carol, she came to me and she was like, you could do this for the rest of your life if you wanted to, right? There's nothing like a mentor bestowing that on you, and maybe many of you have experienced that, or maybe you've been that person to someone else. It's a very valuable thing that I think happens in the life of an artist or in the life of a professional in any sense. When someone sees something in you and believes in you and actually bestows that upon you. And so I think about that often because I'm like, the older you get, you become the person who can do that for other people. And you should not withhold that if you really believe it. So that experience happened. And then I went to New York City on spring break, and I saw Philip Seymour Hoffman in Death of a Salesman on Broadway. And he's my favorite actor. And I was very upset when he passed, obviously. But seeing him live on stage, it was this combination, right? It's like a mentor saying you can do this, and then seeing someone so move you by their work and be like, I want to do that. And maybe I can do something like that. And that was the trajectory change. Now, in the background of all of this, I have been with my high school sweetheart, right? We got together senior year of high school. We went to the same college. Had a little rough patch in there, decided to get back together, decided to get married immediately after we graduated. So we are now in June of 2012, we get married, and my parents owned a business in North Carolina for many years, like a women's luxury clothing store. So they had a house up there as like a part of the second business that they'd always been running our whole lives. And so we were like, we're gonna go to North Carolina, we're gonna work in the country clubs and the restaurants and save a bunch of money, and then we're gonna go to LA. My wife was gonna go to grad school, and I was going to try to do the actor thing. So we get married in June, and a month later she is pregnant. And we're 22, 23 years old, and it's like, oh, I guess we're not going to LA. And so it really threw a wrench, and it was another one of these moments where I thought I knew what I was doing, and then something happened that really changed the trajectory. And it felt like a death. It felt like a loss. It felt like something was being taken from me that I had tried to manifest, right? And so we decided, we stayed there, we saved some money, we had our daughter, and we decided to move back home to South Florida because that's where her family was, it's where my family was, born and raised here. We needed a support system if we're going to be young parents who are still trying to figure out their careers. So we did a little bit of a pivot, and I started grad school. I did my Master of Arts in Theater Studies. So kind of thinking like, all right, let me get my master's in theater because I didn't do it in college because I was too busy studying the Bible, which I don't regret, honestly, at this point. It gave me a lot, which I'm really grateful for. But let me get my master's so that sets me up to be able to teach, right? Like, yes, I want to keep acting, I want to keep building this career, but I want to be able to teach as well. So I started that grad school program. We moved back down here in the fall of 2013 after working up in the country clubs. That's kind of how I paid my way through grad school, was working at a really nice restaurant and making pretty good money. So we moved back here and we walked into a little church. So not the church that we grew up at, but we went to a little church and they were in their program, I almost said playbill. Church is theater, a form of it. And in their program was this, auditions for Godspell, put on by New City Players. And I hadn't done anything on stage in over a year. I was like, I don't know anything about the South Florida theater community, because even though I grew up here, I was in my Christian bubble. So I didn't know the landscape. I didn't know what was going on down here. And I saw someone saying, we're doing auditions. And I was like, I got to do something. I got to get out there. I have, a lot in me. I'm a new father. I'm trying to build my career in some way. I need to get on stage, because I know that's where I want to be in a lot of ways. And so I auditioned for that show. Same time I started teaching high school theater, so that was sort of like what was making life work at the time. Auditioned for that show, and it was a church that put this on, and we did Godspell. We did 2 performances of Godspell in April of 2014 in Fat Village at, oh my gosh, what's that?
If you remember that.
Yeah, if you remember that place. What's the studio that's there?
CNI
CNI Studios, thank you. So they had that big warehouse. That's where we performed for a couple days. After that, the church guys were like, hey, everyone who was involved in this, who wants to do something? Bring us a proposal. This was a lot of fun. Let's do something else. So I was like, okay, well, I love this play called Rabbit Hole about a family who loses a child. Very different than Godspell. It's a Pulitzer Prize winning play. It's a cast of 5. It's a drama. Beautifully written play about grief and how to overcome grief. And I'd love to direct it. Can we do it? And they were, and this was sort of a test, right? Like, is this church going to be cool with this? There's F words in it, just so you know. And they were like, this is really cool. Let's do it. It's like, okay. So in November of 2014, later that year, we had some auditions. Again, I am not connected to the community at all. We're just kind of throwing this together. A couple of folks from the church were involved. We had some auditions, and we met some people from the community as well. And we were down at Muse Center for the Arts in one of their dance rooms. We did 5 performances over one weekend. Some people showed up. It was a lot of fun. We did the same thing the following year. The church was like, you want to do another one? Go for it. So we did this play called Red by John Logan. I acted in it with another friend of mine. My brother directed it. Another person in the Rabbit Hole cast stage managed it. So it was like just the 4 of us put on this play. And at this point, like, no one's making any money, right? We're just volunteering. It's just community theater. The church was helping out with the rent for these different spaces. And we were just being scrappy and making it work. So we finished that show. And then the church was like, we don't really want a theater company. But Tim, you seem passionate about this. So if you want to take this thing officially and run with it, go with God, for lack of a better phrase. And so in January 2016, a group of friends came together. We incorporated. We got our 501c3. We had all of our friends and family come out that spring and said, hey, we're starting a theater company. And we got our tin cup out and said, give us your pennies, help us out here. And we did our first season that summer. We did No Exit by Jean-Paul Sartre. We did The Glass Menagerie by Tennessee Williams. And we did a play reading of a new play in a couple different venues, right? Still kind of trying to find where we existed. And so in this sort of starting place, I left the teaching job, started working at Starbucks, became part-time at New City Players because we had kind of amassed a little bit. None of us worked for anything doing all the plays, but then we found some donors, found some sponsors, sold some tickets. He was like, okay, let me just dive in and see if I can make this work from a part-time standpoint. At this time, I also got an acting agent, right? Because part-time theater work was not gonna cut it, and neither was Starbucks, to be honest. And so I got an acting agent, and remember, I'm still 270, 80, 90, 300 pounds in that range at this time. And so the acting agent thing wasn't going great. The only gig I booked in those years between 2016 to 2019, I had like one small part in that. There's a McConaughey film. What was that called? Beach Bum, thank you. I can't even remember it. I met Snoop Dogg on that set. I'll never forget, Snoop Dogg was sitting there and I walked by and he just looked up at me and he said, "What up, big fella?" And he reached out his paw and I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm meeting Snoop Dogg. Between takes on that shoot, the props guy is just running a blunt up to Snoop Dogg. And he's smoking a blunt in between takes. Props guy comes back, he hands it off. They're calling action. It's just like, where am I right now? It's ridiculous. So there's like a second where you can kind of see me in that movie. But the only real job I had was as a plus size fit model. So what a fit model is it's not a model, because those are the people they show in the pictures. A fit model is someone they fit the clothes on. So you go to some warehouse in Doral and they see how the clothes fit on you, and the designers, take pictures of you with their phones, and then they send that to the designers and they say, okay, how does this work for, how do I put this? How does this look on fat people, right? We don't want him to be the model, but we'll pay him $100, to drive to Doral and try on these clothes. So kind of a demoralizing job, but it was the job I could get at the time. So I'm trying to build this theater company, which is actually going pretty well. It's not making a lot of money, obviously, because it's nonprofit arts, but it's giving me a lot of purpose, and it's giving me a creative community, and we're building our ensemble of artists. The acting agent thing isn't going great, so I started a video production company with my brother, because I've always wanted to get more into film during this time. I always knew I wanted to do more film acting, more on-screen acting, and I also knew, well, I'm not really booking in the commercial space. It's probably from a lack of experience. So let me just make my own stuff and get more experience, right? And this is kind of one of my tenets that I'll get to at the end. And so we start a video production company. He's like filmmaker, I'm theater maker, but we both kind of cross over and done both. And so I take everything I learned from producing theater and I apply it to producing film. I'm reading books about producing film. I'm reading books about acting on camera. And we start getting some like corporate clients, small business stuff, nonprofits, just like doing videos and trying to make a little bit of money in addition to what I was being paid part-time with New City Players. At the same time, we have creative interests and pursuits. So we start planning for a feature film, a micro-budget feature film, very ambitious for someone who had never produced something officially. But I was like, I've been doing theater for a few seasons now. I can figure it out. And so this was a film that we wrote the story together. He wrote the screenplay. He directed it. I produced it. I AD'd it. First AD, which is kind of like the stage manager of the film set. And if neither of those things mean anything to you, it's the COO of the production is kind of like who the stage manager is, or the first AD. Really the person who's making everything run and making things happen from a logistics standpoint. And I also had a role in the film. I had a supporting role, and it almost killed me, right? So in 2018, we're planning that, we're writing the script, we get to 2019, we shoot it in December of 2019. And this is coming off a huge year for New City Players, right? We did A Raisin in the Sun, we did Macbeth, we did this play called Falling about a family who has a son with nonverbal autism. And that's actually the role that I played and won the Carbonell Award for later that year. So it's like this great year of theater, right? The audience is growing. We're selling out most of our shows. I'm in prep for this film. We shoot Pompano Boy was the name of the film in December 2019. It almost kills me. It's a very difficult process, and why would it not be? I'm acting in it, I'm producing it, and I'm the only producer on it, and I'm the AD. Like, I don't know what I was thinking. Scott will understand how stupid all of the things I just said are. But we did it. Right, and part of it was we planned a lot ahead. We leaned into our relationships and our connections into the community for free spaces. We had people help us provide meals. We did everything we could to make sure that production happened. So we finished shooting that in January 2020. at the time, we're also New City Players is developing this relationship with ArtServe. There's a different executive director there at the time about becoming the resident theater company at ArtServe, and they were like, yeah, let's redo this. We're going to redo our theater space, turn it into a black box. Like, it's happening. It's happening. We're getting our own space, and we have a partnership. We'll be the resident company. They want to do this state-of-the-art thing. And then who knows what happens next? The pandemic, right? This is a part of everyone's story now. It's so weird. It's a part of everyone's story, and yet we still weirdly ignore it. But it's also like, I don't want to sit around and talk about it all the time. It's such a strange thing to kind of deal with because it was so profound in all of our lives, but we don't process it. But I don't know what processing it would look like. I don't know. This is me. These are my live thoughts right now. But it is a huge event for all of us, right? And I was one of those obnoxious people. It was so interesting to see everyone have a different pandemic response, right? I was one of those people who was like, balls to the wall. I am using this space to create as much as possible. And so New City Players did this Instagram live show called Late Show Live. We did 100 episodes of that where I brought on a different theater artist in the community, and we helped raise money for the South Florida Theater League because they were doing distributions to actors and theater artists in the community. So multiple nights a week, I'm interviewing theater artists on our Instagram live show. We took a play and turned it into a podcast. So we produced a podcast that year. I started a podcast. Everyone started a podcast in the pandemic about Philip Seymour Hoffman, which became a passion project. And one day I will finish it. I promise, Phil. I promise I'll finish it. And we also made a movie. So that was another thing. It's like I sat down with a buddy and we wrote a screenplay about a theater company, right? Write What You Know. And we ended up shooting it in March of 2021. So it was kind of like all this space that we had. You know, we're doing online programming, the video production thing. I'm still kind of working on that and building that. I get a new agent at this time as well because the old agent obviously just wanted me to be a fit model. So a lot of things changed during this period. The biggest one being is that my marriage fell apart. Oh, personal life shift, right? And it's crazy how things happen at the same time. And so in the spring of 2021, you know, after we shoot this film, my wife and I had been slowly it was like the slow grow apart, right? And when you hindsight these things in your life, you kind of realize that I was your classic, I am trying to gather all of my worth and all of my value from my work. And unless I am achieving and unless I feel that I am succeeding, I'm not happy. And that is a toxic trait in a person when you're trying to build a life and build a healthy relationship. And so over these years of building New City Players and trying to be an actor and trying to make films, my wife and I were slowly growing apart, right? And that finally came to a head in the spring of 2021. The pandemic certainly didn't help that because I doubled down on work and producing and using the space to fill. And I think she took more of this is a traumatizing event and I'm trying to process it in real time. And I was like, I'm gonna ignore it and work harder. Classic. And so we're in this period where, okay, I make a film, personal life is falling apart, New City Players is kind of hanging by a thread, right? We're a theater company who can't do theater for over a year. And the venue we were at in 2019, our banner season, is no more. That venue gets wiped off the face of the earth. And so we're coming out of this and we don't have a space. We're looking for a new venue, trying to put ourselves back together, trying to figure out what we're gonna produce when we have no money in the bank and we are having to change locations and kind of rebuild. And I am going through a personal purging at the same time. And this is for me when I think the like serious changes of my life started to occur, right? And I wrestle with this a lot because I want to tell people in their 20s, like, please just try to build a happy and meaningful life and don't just be obsessed with work and achievement. But then I also am like, but do you kind of have to some degree, like work your ass off and learn the hard lessons and it gets you some good things, right? It builds some sense of professional credibility at a personal cost. Can you have it all, or do you need to earn a lot and learn the bad lessons, and then maybe, you turn 30 and that's when you start to make life changes, or 40 or 50, depending on, where you're at in your life. It's a tough thing, but I think for me, I started going to therapy, right? And this was the big change, right? Finally, someone with an objective, as much as another person can have an objective perspective. There's such power in just giving someone money to call you out on your bullshit. It's so, because I'm in a lot of spaces where I'm giving other people money, right? I'm the boss, I'm the leader, and it's hard to expect those people to call you out. So especially as leaders, I think having places outside of that, where maybe we're paying someone to call us out. And thankfully, I got a therapist who was more about that, less about enabling me, enabling my toxic behavior, or negative thoughts, and more about calling them out and assessing them. And what I really learned through that is that it's this truism that I'm sure all of us are familiar with. I was just very much a person who was reacting with emotion, right? Reacting with emotion rather than responding with wisdom. And my process of therapy was going in there every week and saying, here's what's going on in my personal life, here's what's going on with the company, here's, what's going on with my daughter, right? Because we have a child involved in this separation, which complicates things. And here's what's going on with my family, coming from the church background, divorce, it was hard on my family, right? And I'd already sort of like walking off the path in a lot of ways. It's just kind of like feeling like a disappointment, right? From where my trajectory originally was. And my therapist really helped me say, you need to slow down and pause and take time before you speak. Take time before you write that email. Take time before you react and process what is going on. Allow the emotions to happen. And for many of you, this will be like, yeah, obviously. This is called being a human being. But process those emotions and then speak from a place of courage, of love, of humility, of empathy, and communicate in a way that people are going to receive and where you have done the emotional labor of processing, especially when you're in a crisis. Around the same time, I'm separated from my wife. I am my ex-wife. I am trying to rebuild the company. I am going to therapy. I'm trying to make myself better. The other huge change for me was meeting my now wife, Casey, who is here. Oh, Casey gets a clap. And this is a thing where, finding a person who you share values with. And you've probably heard that, like, if you have chosen for your life partner someone who you are not aligned on what are the most important things, it's this idea of compatibility versus chemistry. I don't know if you've heard this before. A lot of people may have very high chemistry, but and those first 9 months of the relationship are amazing because they're both so funny to each other, and there's a lot of romance, and there's a lot of excitement and the newness. But then they finally get to know each other, and they realize, oh, on the values level, we're actually not very compatible. But there's so much chemistry, so let's try to make this thing work. And I think ultimately, compatibility for the long haul, if you're looking for a life partner, did this just become like a marriage thing? I don't know what's happening right now. I'm just going off on it's all connected for me, right? It's like my life is very holistic. It's hard for me to parse these things out from the professional story outside of these things. But finding someone you really share values with, and it's like, okay, these are our number ones. Are we on the same? Yeah, we're on the same page. We're on the same page. We're on the same page. And so meeting someone who shared my values, who we could work together, rather than my work being something that was away from my partner, it was something I was doing with my partner. And everyone's different in that regard, right? Some people want to work in completely different spaces so they can come home and have something to talk about. Some people want to work with their spouse. Some people want to work in the same industry but not together. I think that's an individual decision. But someone who understands what it is like to be an artist, to be a creative person, the sort of ups and downs of that, and the shame spirals that happen, and the self-doubt, and the ego, and kind of like, how do you balance all of those things that are constantly stirring up inside of you? If your partner intuitively understands that, they're going to be much more equipped to help you through those things. And that's really what I found in Casey. And really, you learn that, like, oh, I wasn't living from my values, and I hadn't really even defined them for myself. Therapy helped with that. Finding a partner who, made me want to be a better man, right? Anyone? Nicholson? Because Casey really does make me want to be a better man. It's a very powerful feeling to have your partner be a person who drives that for you. So it's mental, it's emotional, and then you go to the doctor and he says, you're not pre-diabetic, but you're pre-diabetic. You're 31 years old, and your bad cholesterol, your HDL is really high, and it's not looking good. You probably need to get this under control. And I've got an 8-year-old. I'm almost pre-diabetic. I'm like, I have always known in the back of my head that I'm going to get this physical thing under control one day. I don't know why I've always known it. I'm very strange with change because I'm so stubborn. Like, I know I'm going to change something in the back of my head, but until I'm ready to change it, it's not going to change. And Casey will tell you, there is a stubborn muleness to me. But once that clicks, it's going to happen. Like, it's going to happen. And so I hired a nutrition coach because this is an area that I couldn't muscle my way through myself, right? Just like I hired a therapist, I hired a nutrition coach and completely changed my world, right? It gave me I learned so much about food. I learned so much about my body. I learned about exercise. And it started this path of like, okay, what does it look like to build a meaningful and healthy life where I'm not just reaching for happiness or fulfillment through work, but I'm actually doing things on a daily basis that allow me to feel fulfilled and happy. And I think that comes through healthy relationships. It comes through taking care of your body. It comes through taking care of yourself. And it comes through consistency on work that you love, among other things. So during this time, I'm also booking more commercials, right? I'm starting to book commercials. I book a spot on Bad Monkey. I'm continuing to act in independent films, short and feature films. I started producing more films. So everything I learned from producing my brother's film and then making my own film shooting that during the pandemic, I start to apply, get hired as a producer on other independent filmmakers' works, and just got connected with some really talented people. And we got to go to festivals all over the country with some great short films. And then during this time as well, New City Players, we found a new space to rent in Wilton Manors. We doubled down on the type of work we wanted to do, this broad range of classic, contemporary, and original works of live theater. And we have been consistent in our mission, in our vision, in building more donors and applying for more grants, in growing our budget and growing our staff, growing our ensemble, growing our board as well. And that, all of these things, it's hard for me to like, how did all of this happen at the same time? I don't know. A lot of stress for sure, but also you spend a lot of time spinning your wheels and doing activities that aren't actually valuable when you're younger. And I think as you get older, your ROI increases because you know what lever to pull. Like, oh, this is the most important thing to be doing. This is the most important type of work. And so from all of this, a couple things that I've drawn, right, that maybe could be inspiration for you. I think the first one, it goes back to early in me building my career, is this idea of being your own gatekeeper. A lot of us in the artists and the creative spaces, there are gatekeepers who are saying, well, if you don't get this type of funding, or you don't get, or you aren't at this level of the industry, if you aren't working in Hollywood, or if you aren't working on Broadway, let me put it in my worlds, you're not a real artist. You're not a real storyteller. And maybe that is your goal. I think that's great if you want to work in Hollywood or you want to work on Broadway. I'm not saying I'm against those things happening serendipitously one day. I don't want to sacrifice all the good things in my life in order to get there, to be quite honest. But you can make things now, right? You can start a theater company with a group of friends and do it for nothing and experiment and see if there's an audience for that. You can make a film with a group, the technology is there to make something. There are grants available. Many of us know about the grants in the cultural division. There are grants to be able to do projects and experiment. A lot of times you need to have proven a body of work. So that goes back to just make something, right? I've gotten grants to make films. The only reason that's happened is because I took a short play of my friends that was a 1-character short play. Never directed anything before. It was a 2-camera setup. It was me doing a 10-page monologue. It's terrible. Don't ever watch it. It's 17 minutes long. It's me doing a 10-page monologue. It cuts between 3 camera angles. And I'm like, I directed this. Now I can say I'm a director, right? Now when I apply for a grant, I'm like, yeah, I've directed something. It didn't go anywhere. It didn't show in any festival. 7 people saw it and stopped watching at minute 11 because it's laborious. But it's portfolio. It's proof of work. And that's the type of things you can do, right? There's a little bit of like fake it till you make it in there. But be your own gatekeeper. Don't allow the industry standards to stop you. The other thing I've learned is consistency over time in the same direction. I think I shared this with you the other day, Evan. So this is a huge lesson for me. And it comes down, it's a daily habits thing, right? It's like, I want to write a screenplay. That is a amorphous goal that is, how do you achieve writing a screenplay? It's like, that shouldn't be the goal. The goal should be, I'm going to write for 1 hour every day. And if you write for 1 hour every day for 6 months, you will have a screenplay at the end of those 6 months. Now, that doesn't help our sort of need for instant gratification, but that is how great work is built. Whether that's painting or writing or preparing for a role or memorizing your lines, the only way I've ever been able to achieve anything creative that I was truly proud of is because I put the time in on a daily basis over a long period of time. I think that applies to business as well. I think that applies to relationships. I think that applies to everything, right? If you don't put in the time to your relationship, your spouse or your partner, it's not going to flourish, right? Nothing flourishes without the investment of time that is consistent. Another practice of mine that was really helpful that I in this period of crisis, 2021, 2022, is writing your eulogy. Has anyone done this? Has anyone written their eulogy? Yeah. So basically, we're at my funeral, right? And someone is reading about me. What would I want them to say? That's the eulogy, is the thing that is said about you when you're dead. And it's a very powerful experience because it reveals your values. Sometimes it's hard to what are my values? What do I care about? It's hard to just bullet those out. But when you think about death and no longer existing and what you want your legacy to be and what you want others to say about you, it really reveals what your North Star is. And from a professional standpoint, I think what I realized through that process was that my North Star is meaning. And this goes back to the church thing, right? I could draw it all the way back to the day I was born and how I was raised. I am looking for the work that I do, my relationships, my daily habits. I want it all to mean something, have some sense of meaning and depth and robustness to it, a purpose, a why behind it. That is what is so valuable to me. So things that are vapid and frivolous and, yes, I can get caught up in them, but it's why I'm on a anti-social media crusade right now. I just can't do it anymore, right? It's killing our creativity. It's killing our minds. There's hardly any meaning in it. And I don't want to discount the education and the communities that can form through technology, but we've got to use it intentionally. We've got to get it under control. So your eulogy can become this North Star. I think another thing, this is more recent for me, but focusing on, with these habits, with these, where am I going? What am I trying to create? Focusing on who I'm trying to become, not what I'm trying to achieve. I think you can, at the end of the day, all we have is our character. All we have is who we are as human beings. A lot of people have made beautiful work that has lasted the ages, and they were terrible people. Was it worth it? Maybe for my favorite thing, it was worth it, okay? Yeah. But in the most part, it's not worth it, right? Focusing on who we are becoming rather than what we are achieving. That's a huge lesson I've had to learn because my personality is kind of built on achievement and garnering value from my achievements. Unlearning that, I am living at there's so much more peace in my life. My neutral has come to a much more calm, I don't have low grade. I've had low grade anxiety my entire life, and I didn't know it until 3 years ago. When that was finally removed from my life because of a lot of these things, right? It's not just one thing. but it's focusing on who you're becoming. I talked about habits already, finding those daily habits for you that matter, that it's not just I am trying to achieve this big thing, and once I achieve that thing, I'll be happy, but it's like, what do I want my life to look like daily? Because it is that daily practice that increases our level of contentment, happiness, enjoyment, whatever it may be, gratitude. And so for me, it's I want to eat well for the most part. I want to exercise often, 4 times a week or so. I like to read every day. If I don't read every day, I feel like I'm missing something. Learning and expanding my mind is very valuable to me. I want to connect with my wife and with my daughter every day. I want to take stock of the human beings in my life. I want to connect with friends often as I can on a weekly basis or even beyond that. Nurturing my relationships. None of those things have to do with my work, but those are all the things that actually have increased my level of contentment in life, is investing in those types of things. And for some people, that's, I got to meditate, I got to do yoga, I have to connect with this person, I need to go to therapy. There's so many different things that we can do for ourselves that clear us, that allow us to do something like, what are my values? What big project is worth my time? What is all of this for? Asking those big questions. And I think the last one that I will share is that Casey and I were going from the gym to Publix a couple weeks ago, and we were walking, and the sun was hitting the sidewalk in a way where we saw all of these like weird shiny lines. I was like, whoa, what is that? And then we saw at the end of the shiny lines was a slug. So there's a slug on the sidewalk, and maybe you've seen this before. If the sun is hitting like where the slug has been, the journey, it's like very shiny. And the only way you would ever see it is if the light hits it. And you kind of follow and you're like, okay, that slug is moving very slowly. And they started way up there. And this path is literally, I took a picture of it. This is the path. It literally does this all the way down to where the slug is now. And I was like, this actually helps me understand these last several years of my life. Growth is not linear. And we so want it to be linear because it's easier for us to say 2 + 2 = 4. If I do this, then I'll get this. So often it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 5 steps back. It is this process that, especially if you don't examine it, if you don't put light on it, you just think you're failing or not succeeding. And I think if you really took stock and said, where was I 3 years ago? Where was I 10 years ago? And had some gratitude about your life and some assessment of your life, you realize, oh, I have grown. I can't chart it in 10 seconds like Evan did in that like aha moment. But even that, that's your pitch. I'm sure that process of aha, you don't just listen, and maybe you did. And if you did, can we study your brain? But you have an aha moment and then everything changes. That does happen, right? For some people, that does happen. Like, oh, this happened and then I never smoked another cigarette again. Or this happened and I became a different person. For me, it is sort of like that click and then I go on it. But it's a lot of like tension and buildup. And I don't want to do it. I don't want to change. I don't want to change this. I don't want to change this. And I'm going back and I'm receding. I'm regressing. And then, but I know I need to do it. Growth is not linear. And I think understanding and embracing your process of growth is such a valuable thing, whether it's in the creative act, whether it's in your personal life. To me, all of these things are the same. They're all connected. It's just one holistic life. But just remember the slug. That's my final thing to you, is to remember the slug. Thank you. Uh-oh.
Powerful stuff. I've actually been listening to some Ethan Hawke, which just on
Yeah.
Joe Rogan podcast, and
Say
just
that again?
listening
Hawke.
to podcasts with actors. And Ethan Hawke was just on Joe Rogan podcast, and it's interesting when you hear it from somebody locally. Obviously, you could reach out and touch who's like a real person versus an Ethan Hawke, but everybody took a step, a leap of faith. Outside of their comfort zone at some point to get to where they went to. And right, it's everybody's process is different. Some people it happens quicker. Some people it's a long drawn out process. But I'm a advocate of taking a step outside of your comfort zone, and that's where the growth and the beauty lies. So I commend you for obviously doing that, sharing that, and it is relatable. And I would like to open it up for any questions here.
Yeah.
Elephant in the room, how'd you lose weight?
Yeah. So I hired a nutrition coach, and in terms of the science of losing the weight, it was focusing on strength training and building muscle, because muscle, as we know, burns more calories than fat, right? So that was sort of the physical piece. It's 10,000 steps a day. It was being in a calorie deficit. So my trainer helped me find what is my basal metabolic rate, which is like, if I did nothing all day, here are the calories I would need just to survive, and it's a set amount of calories. It's like, okay, if I'm exercising a handful of times a week, that goes down a little bit. And then you look at that number and you cut out 500 calories a day. Now you're at a calorie deficit of 500 a day or 3,500 a week, which is about a pound a week. And then it's tracking all of my food, weighing my food, planning my food. First few weeks, that was very challenging and overwhelming and took a lot of time. I felt like I was spending 4 hours a day on food prep. Now it's like, I track my food because it's fun, because I'm weird. But now it's just like, I've got my things, it's second nature, it's very easy. But it was this combination of strength training, tracking your food, being in a calorie deficit, and in terms of the quality of the food, focusing on things that are high protein and high fiber, because that's helping me build muscle. It's helping my gut health. It's also helping me feel more full, because protein and fiber help with satiety, which is the feeling of being full, more than fat and carbs do.
Last longer.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's not cutting out carbs, it's not cutting out things. It's really trying to have a flexible diet, but focus on, I'm trying to hit these targets rather than I'm trying to restrict myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that your pre-life you probably couldn't have done that.
Yeah.
In the world before that, but there seems to be. It takes a lot to not only do that for a period of time, but to make that your new daily routine.
Lifestyle.
So I'm just curious that in some ways, what you went through allowed you to mature into that mentally.
Yeah, I think. There's this great Franciscan, Richard Rohr, who says, I think I shared this with you too, but the only way we really change is either through great love or great suffering. And I think going through great suffering, a lot of it by my own doing, it just puts everything into perspective. And this is where it's like, I don't know. Now it's like, well, I'm so much happier. I get out of bed and my ankles don't hurt, because I'm not carrying 100 extra pounds. And I'm not sweating all day because I'm not carrying an extra 100 pounds. And I can bend over and tie my shoes. It's like these little things that have the quality of my life is so improved. So that's where now I want to keep doing this comes from. But that initial phase it's a crucible of something has to change, because the doctor says I'm not okay. I don't feel okay. I'm not comfortable in myself. I'm not confident in myself. I can act that way, and I've been doing that my whole life. But the actual feelings of me, it's not aligned, and I needed something to change. So
and when the doctor tells you all the things that could stop working if you get diabetes,
Yeah.
don't take care of it, then you get a little bit more motivation.
And there's a weird economic thing for me too. I hate going to the doctor because I don't want to spend money on the doctor. I have this I'll pay the coach now, so I don't have to pay the surgeon 20 years from now.
Yeah.
And I also knew the coach thing was huge, because I need the professional training, because I don't know what I don't know, and I need the accountability. I needed the skin in the game. Okay, here's $1,700 for 16 weeks. If I don't do this, I just blew $1,700. And that's a lot for an artist trying to make this thing work. So it was that commitment. It was the financial commitment that sort of was that final tipping point of don't mess this up. You will be an embarrassment to yourself if you don't do it. Yeah, but this is where what I was eating helped. I tell this to Casey all the time. I'm this should have been harder, because I was eating more protein and eating more greens. I didn't feel miserable. I felt full. I felt like I had eaten enough every day, but I was losing weight because I was in a calorie deficit.
What's
So
the name of that diet?
Atkins, yeah.
Yeah. No, it is almost there.
Different strokes for different folks.
Yeah.
But yes, whatever works. Any other questions?
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for your transparency, your honesty,
Yeah.
clarity, succinct.
Thank you.
Would you say your stubbornness contributed, and are you target goal driven? Was that a plus for you?
I mean, I would say yes, right? I think, like, everything is a blessing and a curse, right? It's two sides. Everything is like the thing that is like potentially a superpower is also your kryptonite. So it's like, yes, if I see something that I want, if I really want it, I'm gonna get it.
That's probably what
That is innate.
most important thing.
It's also dangerous.
Is an achievement.
That's the awareness.
Exactly. Because if the thing you really want is to have a wonderful relationship with my wife,
Oh,
well, now that's something that we can do and we can share and we can spend time on, or to have a great relationship with my daughter, channeling that. But that came from a place of reestablishing my values and garnering self-worth from meaning, from love, from community, and not from achievement. And ironically, making all of these changes, I've now seen more professional success in the last few years than the previous 7. And now, is that because I built the groundwork and almost killed myself? Some, yes. But is that because I'm now focusing on the right things? Yeah. So, yeah.
Tell me the quote again from Rabbi Akiva.
Oh, who are you and what are you doing? What are you doing here? Who are you and what are you doing here? Which I think is the question of the artist. Right. Thank you. Yeah.
So what is your current goal? Like, what are you working on now?
Yeah, so now, New City Players is the beefiest part-time job at this point. Kind of 3/4, 2/3, half-time. It kind of depends on other things that I'm working on. But we're in our 10th season. I'm directing a show right now. We're doing our Christmas radio play that opens next week. Runs for 5 shows downtown. I've got some brochures here. We're doing a play in February and March that I'm also directing. It's a project I'm really passionate about. It's about 2 men who form an unlikely friendship, and it kind of gets at this idea of male friendship and maleness and masculinity, which is kind of a challenging question and conversation for us right now. There's a lot of opinions about it, so I'm excited to explore it on a stage. I just received a grant to do a short documentary project that I'll be directing and producing. So it's about a family who they lost a son to a rare disease, and they have another son who also has the rare disease. So they want to tell their story
wow.
and help raise awareness for that cause. Yeah. And then I have self-tapes. I'm submitting self-tapes for commercials. I really need to do one today somehow in the next 2 hours because it's due at 3:30, but I have to be somewhere at 12. So I don't know if it's possible. And what else are we doing? I'm writing newsletters. I found I really enjoy writing. So I write a monthly newsletter for the theater company. I write a monthly newsletter, just like my own artist newsletter. So I'm writing 2 different newsletters a month.